Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy days to come and listen to our webinar. As you all know, this is for turning compliance into reality and specifically integrating security engineering and governance to strengthen your Azure security. I'll apologize. First of all, I think there's almost nothing more divisive over how you say the word Azure or Azure. So if I'm offending people by saying Azure, it's because it's been beaten into me by Liam repeatedly, and we'll just blame him throughout the rest of the meeting. We've got a very quick introduction today. This is actually a follow-on webinar from a brief that Liam and I both gave at the International Cyber Expo. And this is really a chance to go over some of the slides again, go over some of the content again, and deliver it hopefully to a wider audience and to people that couldn't make it on the day. I don't want to spend too long on the introduction because this is not really a briefing or a discussion about myself and Liam. This is more about the tools, some of the tricks and tips that we found along the way, and ways in which we can help people and help customers and anyone really across the wider IT and cyber community really just use tools that are readily available. They might already have at their fingertips to already deliver some of the governance capability and the risk capability that I think is really important across the world today. So very quick introduction about myself and Liam. I'm Peter Lane. I'm a managing consultant here at Cyro Cyber. I specialise in governance, risk and compliance. So I spend my life pretty much reading policies. If there's any standard or framework, then usually I'm delivering some form of assessment against it, whether it be NIST, ISO 27001, or even sometimes PCI DSS, although I like to keep that quite quiet. And then I'm joined today by Liam. Would you like to introduce yourself, Liam?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm a cybersecurity consultant working at Cyro Cyber. I work mainly with Microsoft security products such as Microsoft Purview and Microsoft Defender, and the topic mainly today will be Purview. I have a total of 8 years experience in roles varying from engineering to consultancy, and over this time it's been a forever changing landscape because, as we know, Microsoft love to change things. One moment something's in the portal, one moment it's not. So Microsoft definitely keeps me on my toes.
Thanks, Liam. And as we mentioned, we work for a company called Cyro Cyber. Cyro is a pure play consultancy company specializing in one of 4 core tenets, for want of a better phrase. I've mentioned I work in the GRC team, so governance, risk and compliance. Liam is a part of the CSA team conducting cybersecurity architecture, basically helping organizations with any challenges they might face in or around their environment. We've got 2 other teams, OST, offensive security testing. These are the penetration testers and vulnerability management specialists. And then also the cybersecurity services, CSS. This comprises of our in-house SOC, Security Operations Center, and also they provide other services such as the managed operations services and so on. We also have a couple of icons along the bottom. I won't spend too much time going through each one. They're essentially the badges or the shiny certificates. Like I mentioned in the preamble, we're not here to talk about ourselves. We're here more to talk about something that we've come across that we'd like to share with you. And actually, as I keep on reminding Liam, what we're really here to talk about is how stupid I can be in certain circumstances and how hard I can make my life, which will become clear throughout the brief, I'm sure, or throughout the presentation. So it's not your average presentation. I did explain this during the International Cyber Expo, and I think it's always a good way to start something like this with a bit of honesty. I'm a consultant. That's the first thing I think is worth knowing. And all consultants rely on customers, which could be yourselves or it could be anyone across the wider cyber environment. And we need you to pay us to come into your environment and do something for you, whether it's conduct an assessment, help you out with something, but that relies on you needing us. And when our marketing officer and the wider organization said, let's branch away from the norm rather than just telling people what we can do, why don't we tell them something that can help themselves? I put my hand up straight away. I was like, hang on, I need to be billable. I'm a consultant. I need them to pay me to come in and do something, and that's not going to work if we give them the tools themselves. I was overruled wholeheartedly, and actually the feedback we got from the International Cyber Expo was really positive, and I think people liked not having to have something thrown down their throats all the time about, come and pay Cyro to do something. It's quite nice just to see a new tool and be impressed by it, as hopefully you will be. So why Purview? So my company, Cyro Cyber, is completely supplier agnostic. Which I appreciate we're here mainly to talk about Microsoft and Azure and Purview. This is just one of the many tools. We'll happily come into your environment and help you find a tool, or we'll work with a tool that you're already working with. We might even make recommendations. But Microsoft in particular and Azure and the Purview capability has become really apparent with some of the services that we deliver. And certainly for me, I've got a case study that I'm going to be going through where I'll hopefully talk you through, first of all, how silly and stupid I can be, considering I'm a consultant in information security. But then actually how Liam came in to save the day as a bit of a hero, as he won't mind me saying, and how we delivered a service for clients, excuse me, that I think really does branch away from the norm, and I think is something that every stakeholder that I speak to, I try and encourage them to take away. So what is Purview? I fully appreciate that you may be in the position that I was in, where I genuinely never heard of it before I met Liam. And I'm not exaggerating. I'd kind of understood the cloud. I knew it wasn't a mythical being. I knew it was a physical thing and not a cloud in the sky. I knew it really existed in a data center somewhere. I knew some of the companies. I could label some abbreviations, but that was about it. If you started to ask me more about Azure, I really couldn't tell you any of the service offerings. And I certainly didn't know that Purview is a little bit of an unsung hero. It wasn't in the Avengers movies or any of the comic books, but it really does one of the most amazing jobs at looking after an organization or a person's data. And what we've found quite amazingly is actually this is readily available to so many organizations and people. If you have some form of Microsoft subscription, specifically if you have E3 or E5, you will absolutely have this tool. And more often than not, when I go into clients and conduct assessments for them, they're not using it or they've never heard of it, but yet they're paying for it. And it's doing the job of a consultant really already for them. I did briefly introduce the fact that I hadn't heard of Purview, and I'm going to explain now exactly how I learnt what Purview was, and exactly how embarrassing it was to have to tell someone I didn't know what I was talking about. So as a consultant, I was brought in to help an organization. My client was an international pharmaceutical organization. They had recently decided that this year, and actually it is still this year because it's about 6 months ago this happened, they wanted to start aligning to ISO 27001. And anyone that's in the audience that has ever come across ISO 27001, and I'm willing to bet most people have, they fully appreciate that it's a bit of a beast. It's not something you just say, I'm going to log on and fill in a form. It's several months worth of work. Then you start to live and breathe it. Then you have internal audits, so on and so forth. It's a big undertaking, certainly for a global organization like this. They had several different entities throughout Europe that they wanted to bring within the scope. And importantly for this story, they just migrated to Azure. They needed a readiness assessment and a point-in-time gap analysis, which is where I came in. And I did what all consultants do, although they pretend they don't need to. I went to my favorite friend, Microsoft Excel, and I created this absolutely beautiful spreadsheet. It had everything: formulas, stakeholders, interview schedules, which country I was going to be talking to, what questions I was going to ask them. It was then auto-populating data. I even had pivot charts. Search engines help you find out exactly how to use them properly, but I had them. And I was really excited. And I went across to my boss and explained this amazing thing I was about to deliver that would take several weeks. And he said, you need to speak to Liam really quickly, which is embarrassing as a consultant. I don't mind saying that. He said, this is going to take you a really long time and a lot of work. Go and speak to Liam. So I did go and speak to Liam. I showed him the same spreadsheet, thinking anyone who works in cyber loves an Excel spreadsheet. And he laughed in my face. I don't mind saying he laughed for a really long time, actually. And was almost close to letting me go and deliver that for several weeks worth of work, just to then show me in the end how much easier my life could have been, which is really the purpose of today's brief. So Liam, if you could, please explain exactly how silly I could have looked and what you recommended I did instead.
Cheers, Pete. So I recommended using the Compliance Manager, which is a robust tool used for assessing environments against regulations. And what I've got here is a video which will demonstrate how to create an assessment in Purview and how it assesses your organization. So let's have a look at this. So to start with, we're just going to add an assessment and then select a regulation. From here, you'll see that there's 381 regulations to select from, but there's actually 383. So that's how quick Microsoft are moving. There's already been, since we were at ICE 2 weeks ago, 2 regulations that's already been added. On the right-hand side, you'll notice there's supported services. We've got Salesforce, Microsoft 365, GCP, Zoom. This isn't just narrowed down to Microsoft. This also can plug into other environments. But for this instance, we're just going to look at that ISO 27001 and click Save. So when we click Next, we're just going to name this assessment now. So once we name this assessment, we will then go over to the services. So just 2 seconds. Okay, so your selected services, this could be GCP, it could be Microsoft 365, it could be Zoom. So as we were talking about earlier, we can go into these environments, we can go into GCP. and that's where you'll select it. And then you'll click create assessment, and it's just that easy to create an assessment. But I've already created one for this demonstration. So we're going to delve in now to the ISO 27001 I created earlier. So 58% of your assessment progress, your points achieved are the points that you contribute towards this score. And your Microsoft managed points are the ones that you don't need to worry about. Your controls, this will provide you a visual breakdown. So what's in progress, what's passed, what's failed. And then if we just go down, you can see a drop down here where it provides a little bit more context on what's passed and what's out of scope. Your fun really begins with your improvement actions. So this is where you're going to actually take on tasks to actually provide that compliance score and improve that. So you've got your title, your service, your test status, but the impact is the bit that I really care about here. It's the points. So 27 points, 9 points, you can see at the top. The 27 points are going to be the ones that you're going to want to focus on. Reason being is because that's going to improve that compliance score towards that regulation. So please bear with me. Purview might be a great tool, but it is really slow when it comes to uploading the tasks. So just give us 2 seconds for that to load. Okay, so within a task now, you can see you can assign an owner. So this could be an infrastructure engineer, and then how to implement. So you've got an implementation guide, which is great for that phase. You've then got evidence. So you can add a document, you can add a link, something to refer to back later. And if necessary, you can then export your testing history, which you'll see on the top right-hand side. Once you feel like this task has come to completion, you can click on Edit Details and change that implementation status to implemented. And you can change that test and verification to passed. And it's just that simple. Once you've completed that first task, you can save and close, and there you go. You're one step closer to becoming compliant.
Thanks, Liam. I'd just like to take this minute to say how amazing that is, genuinely. And every time I watch that video and listen to you explain that, it just reminds me of the fact that I was going to take several weeks interviewing as many stakeholders as possible from around the world. And in several minutes there, you've just selected the right options, and it broadcasts across the entire organization's IT, and not just in Azure, across their entire environment, and brings back a score and work on points, and then you can assign owners. Yeah, it's incredible. And as a consultant, as everyone here will have probably worked with or for or as a consultant, you go in, you conduct these readiness assessments. And personally, I've never needed to go to Alaska and conduct a readiness assessment against their data protection standard. But if I was brought in, hopefully flown there, that would be nice, and someone in Alaska needed me to do so, I'd be reaching for this tool to say, go, right, tell me how much this does or does not comply with that standard. It's incredibly powerful. As with everything, I think you'll agree, Liam, only as powerful as the person behind the wheel and then what you do with it afterwards. Yep, but 100%. Amazing to go and get the raw data. And it certainly was really successful for our client. I'm happy to say a few weeks ago now, they actually passed their first certification audit, and they're now accredited to 27001, which was a massive success for them. But the story didn't stop there. They had one of their entities throughout Europe, was actually a UK-based seller of pharmaceutical goods, and they did this in retail stores across the UK, and then also using website transactions. Now, many people in the audience might know, or they might not know, but if you store, process, or transmit cardholder data, you have to comply with something called PCI DSS, which is I want to say almost the most hated framework in the world. I mean, again, I haven't been to Alaska and done their data protection one, but PCI DSS gets a lot of wry smiles whenever anyone has to work with it. And it's quite a reluctant standard to work with. It's very black and white. There's no gray areas, and they ask you some really challenging questions across your entire environment. Well, this entity had to comply with it, and to start the ball rolling, they brought me in because I'm an assessor under PCI DSS, and they asked me to do a readiness assessment because they were going to have to do something known as a ROC, which is the biggest bulk of questions that PCI DSS have. And they wanted to know, how close are we to complying with the new version, and do we have to remediate anything? Absolutely fine. And unfortunately, we got a little bit stuck on requirement 4.2. And I will say everyone gets stuck on requirement 4.2. I think even our organization will get stuck on 4.2. This requirement says you need to make sure that your organization cannot send cardholder data, so anything on your card, through end user messaging. And end user messaging, for anyone that doesn't know, would be really anything Outlook, Teams, WhatsApp, text messages. And it's an important requirement. I really hope no one's texting my 16-digit number to their sales colleagues to process the transaction. But the requirement's there and people have to comply with it. And it's really difficult not to comply because it's very easy not to text my card details, please. But actually, it's really hard to prove that to an assessor. I mean, how do you prove something that's not happening, that doesn't exist? And I was trying to help them with this, and it's actually something I've struggled with several customers before. And I thought, well, I've seen what Purview could do where it came to 27,001. Maybe if I ring my friend Liam, who knows things that I certainly do not, I could bring him in and he could save the day. And it would be a very dull webinar if he didn't save the day. I'm glad to say he did. And could you explain exactly how you did that, Liam?
Yeah, no problem. So as soon as I heard about the situation, I knew Purview could help. For this organisation, we prevented financial information being sent externally from the organisation. And what I have here is a demonstration looking at primary account number, this keyword, in Exchange, OneDrive and Teams, and watching Purview block this so it can't be sent outside the organisation. So let's start the video and look at Exchange to start with. Okay, so you can see there that sensitive information has been detected because that policy tip at the top has appeared. So from that policy tip, you can see that it's conflicted with the organization policy. And when we go to send this, it should appear blocked. And there we go. So you can see there, this message has been blocked. It cannot be sent outside of Exchange. So it's working as expected. We're now going to go over to the second location, which is OneDrive. And you'll see that I have a file already created with the name primary account number. And within that file, you've got that keyword. And again, that policy tip has appeared. If we click on more options, you'll see there it's conflicted because it's detected that sensitive information and it's basically saying it cannot go outside the organization. But proof in the pudding, let's try and share this with an external account. So when I put this external account in here, hopefully what we should see is some red writing appear underneath saying this cannot be shared because it contains that sensitive information. And there we go. You can see there, it cannot be shared because of that. But the sweet one that Pete was talking to me about was Teams. So he was really sweet on this location. He did not want any information being shared from Teams. So I have an example here with primary account number again, that keyword, trying to share with a guest account. And as you can see, the message was blocked. And what can I do? So if you do believe this is to be an error, you can report it to an IT admin. These policies are customizable and this will generate alerts for your SOC. So if there is further analysis, your analyst can then provide this.
Thanks, Liam. Really good demonstration, and it worked fantastically. This is the first time, genuinely, as someone who has assessed against the PCI DSS standards, that I saw something that could evidence the fact that 4.2 was being met. Most of the time, it would be a policy or it'd be an interview, and it'd be a discussion to say, well, they understand and they know they're not meant to. But this is a really good way to just prove, and the proof is in the pudding, it cannot take place without it generating alert. And what I really liked, because yes, I have my PCI DSS hat on, but actually in the wider scheme of things, I could say, right, well, this could be used for healthcare data, financial data, or sensitive data, anything that an organization wants to protect to make sure that it can't leave the environment, which I think the possibilities are genuinely endless. It was excellent, really good tool. And I think I'm right in saying, Liam, that that's not all Purview has to offer. Is that right?
That is right. So Purview offers many solutions, and I'm just going to talk about two solutions now, insider risk management and data retention policies. So insider risk management is basically like the big brother of Purview. So I'm going to give an example. We have pending leavers. So we might want to monitor them more closely. Reason being, one might be disgruntled. So for this instance, you're going to want to monitor behavior such as copying data to a USB stick, exfiltration to a personal OneDrive, or deletion of SharePoint sites. I've seen it in past organizations where a user has just deleted a whole SharePoint site because he was disgruntled. So you might want to alert on that. So this is what insider risk management is all about. These users are already in your organization and you can monitor and alert on this behavior. Data retention policies. So this could be Exchange, Teams, it could be SharePoint. You might want to retain your emails for 10 years, your Teams messages for 5 years. All of this can be managed centrally within Purview and within your data retention policies. So as you can see here, it's an absolute brilliant tool. It offers many solutions and I'd be really happy to take any questions in the Q&A. I hope you found this really informative.
Thanks, Liam. Really useful and really good to know. We did save a little bit of time at the end for some questions, and please feel free, anyone in the audience, if you do have some questions, put it in. We have a Q&A bubble that'll appear. We did have some people send them in ahead of time. I think we've had a couple of emails. So if you don't mind, we'll start with those, and if time allows, we will certainly answer the ones that we've got in the Q&A bubble. But failing that, we'll get in touch with you personally, and if we think it could be something useful for the wider audience, then we'll broadcast it out further and do that retrospectively. So for the first question, Liam, if you're ready, I'm sure you're excited.
Ready? Yeah, go for it.
What role within Purview or within Entra would you need to implement DLP or information protection? So I imagine this is a question about access rights. Do you have to be an admin or so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So you have two sets of roles. You have your entry roles and you have roles built into Purview. So going on least privilege, you might want to look at the Microsoft Purview roles. So for example, information protection admin and roles, you might create a custom role, for example, within Purview to actually go on least privilege. But if you're looking at the entry side, you might want to look at compliance administrator. It really depends on what role you want to select, depending on what you're doing within the environment. But as we know, we want to go on least privilege, so the Microsoft Purview built-in roles would be the one that I'd go towards. But the information protection admin would give you enough capability to create them.
Brilliant, thanks. The second question, can Purview integrate with a SOC or a SIEM? And this is finally something about Purview where I feel like I can answer, although I'm very sure you're going to add something a lot more technical at the end. But I can say this is definitely something that's able to be done because our own in-house SOC has done this and continues to do so, feeding into Sentinel, if I'm not mistaken. I'm saying that we're completely supplier agnostic, and we are. It's just so happens that our SOC loves Microsoft and delivers as much as they can through Sentinel. And I know that for one of our customers in particular, Purview is one of the connectors. Is there anything else a bit more technical to add, Liam?
Yeah, no worries. So you've got 3 connectors available within Sentinel. You have Microsoft Purview that brings in data classification and sensitivity label logs. You have the information protection. So this is your information protection logs and your insider risk management. So as we were touching on earlier, you can bring them logs into Sentinel. And this will then give your analysts the opportunity to provide that further analysis on all these logs that come in. We can create analytic rules, workbooks, you name it, we can do it. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. They're definitely a lot more technical than my answer. And the last one that we had sent in already, and I think I'm gonna have to make this quick because we've only got 1 minute left, sorry. Is Purview something that I can manage myself, or do I need an expert support? And I think they don't mean me when they say expert, so I'm guessing they probably mean someone more like you, Liam. So would you trust me to set up and run Purview?
I would say with a better hand holding, having some consultancy from someone like myself, we could look at a workshop, we could set this up together. I definitely believe this can be managed in-house with the right support and the right guidance. Of course, the skill set as well, dependent. But yeah, it's a really user-friendly tool, and with the right support and guidance, you could definitely use this in-house. It's a really good tool. Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut short. I know that we are running out of time, but thank you so much, everyone who took time out of the day to come and listen to us. The recording will be available afterwards, and any questions that are popping up in the question and answer bubble, Liam and I will take away and we'll answer them this afternoon. So I hope you all have a really good day and take care, and we'll hopefully hear from you or see you soon.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks all.
Cheers.